We've taken our first steps into the MCU Phase 6 with the long-awaited arrival of Marvel's first family into the MCU. Hi, my name's Zach. Today we're reviewing Fantastic Four: First Steps. Like many of you, I started this YouTube channel because I cannot watch a movie without needing to talk about it afterwards. And if that sounds like you, you're in the right place. Consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, I want this to be a dialogue, a conversation between me and you, so comment down below your thoughts and opinions on Fantastic Four: First Steps. If you had a chance to check it out already. If not, tell me your anticipation level. Are you looking forward to Fantastic Four: First Steps? Has this been a long-awaited Marvel movie for you? Going into First Steps for me, just history with the previous Fantastic Four films. I grew up with the Tim Story ones. I liked them well enough when I was a kid, but going back, they really don't hold up in my opinion. When it comes to Fantastic Four, Four Stick from 2015, wasn't a huge fan of that one either. I think Josh Trank had some really interesting ideas that he tried to do that the studio eventually tore down, and the movie suffered for it. And we got announced that Marvel was going to do Fantastic Four all the way back in like 2021 during Marvel's big Disney Plus Investors Day, where they announced projects alongside Fantastic Four, such as She-Hulk and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, Shang-Chi, a lot of the projects that have come out in the past number of years. Alongside that was Fantastic Four. At the time, it was going to be directed by John Watts, who did the Spider-Man trilogy for Marvel. It eventually got switched over to Matt Shakman, who did the WandaVision series for Marvel, which we'll get into the movie itself, but I think was a great choice to bring on for the Fantastic Four. It's clear that he's a fan of the Fantastic Four. He's very vocal about that.
I grew up reading these comics. These characters were a part of my own family. I felt, I've loved them since I was a kid. So it's such an honor to bring them to the MCU. And, the pressure I felt was the pressure to do right by these amazing characters and by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
And Kevin Feige has always wanted to do Fantastic Four right in the MCU. That's why it's taken so long to get this movie, because Kevin Feige talked about how he was really trying to nail down the script and make sure that they got this story right. And knowing all of that information going into Fantastic Four, while I didn't have huge anticipation for this film, I'm still very much on the Marvel train. I'm a huge Marvel fan. I liked Captain America: Brave New World, but on rewatch, I do think that it suffered a bit more for me. I really enjoyed Thunderbolts, though. Thunderbolts was a really huge step forward in Marvel getting back to their roots and back to their quality over quantity feeling type of movies. But could that continue with Fantastic Four: First Steps? That was my big question going into this film. Let's talk about what worked about Fantastic Four: First Steps. This does not take place in the MCU proper. This takes place on Earth 828. It is a completely different reality. It's a retro, futuristic, kind of 60s vibe of a world that the Fantastic Four have been living in. They've had their powers for 4 years, and they're the only heroes around in this entire world. And that setting for these characters really does set it apart from everything else we've ever gotten in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not only does Matt Shakman drop you into this world, you do get some backstory through news footage of the Fantastic Four, a recap that kind of catches you up to where they are today. But for the most part, you're just plopped down into this futuristic 60s retro-looking environment where the art department in this is so detailed. It's so interesting to look at. There were a number of scenes in this movie where characters were talking or interacting, and I felt distracted because I was constantly looking in the background at what exactly they were doing. They did a great job making the world feel both relatable and recognizable, while also being completely different from anything we've seen in the MCU and in our own world as well. And it's a world that you desperately just kind of want to spend more time in. You want to explore, you want to walk around with these characters and see more of this world. It's clear a lot of work and detail and thought was put into how is this world going to look, how is it going to function, how is it going to be constructed, and it really shows on the screen all that thought process. When it comes to our characters, the Fantastic Four here, there was a lot of talk about the casting, about Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, about Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, and Ebon Moss-Bachrach as the Thing. And I never really had hesitations about the cast all that much. I think they're all very talented actors, and I'm not a comic book reader. I don't really know the Fantastic Four in the comics, so I was just really excited to see what these guys were going to bring to the role. And this is the first Fantastic Four movie where I can truly say that, at least on the screen, adapted, this felt like a true family. The chemistry here between all of our leads is phenomenal. This is the first time watching Fantastic Four where it truly feels like they are a team, where they truly need each and every member to make this team function. If you take any of them out, the team doesn't work. They got the intelligence, the leadership of a Reed Richards, but you have to have the maternal instincts and, in some cases, the level-headedness that Sue Storm brings to kind of anchor Reed back into reality. You've got the Thing and Johnny here, bringing their dynamic and their skills to the team. And that's something about this Fantastic Four team as well that I was not expecting, and actually the whole movie in general. It's a very intellectual movie, where this is not really an MCU film that's focused on big action sequences and beat 'em ups and punch 'em ups on the bad guy. And there definitely is action in this film, and when the action shows up in this film, it's very well done. It's awesome. There's a couple of really amazing cosmic sequences. There's one chase scene in particular that takes place basically in like a black hole. It was adrenaline filled, and I thought it was probably one of the best sequences in the entire movie. Of course, there's a huge big action sequence at the end of the film when we get into Galactus, who we'll talk about in a minute here. But for the most part, this film is very focused on showing off the brains of the Fantastic Four, as a lot of the problems that they're trying to solve in this film, they're trying to solve it from a mathematical and a scientific approach, especially when it comes to Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. And that was very subverting of expectations for me, because when you go into a Marvel film, you know, you're expecting action, you're expecting explosions, you're expecting all this high budgeted blockbuster stuff. And the fact that this film, while being big and large in scale, also kept it personal and intimate to the characters and intelligent all the way throughout the runtime, I thought that that was a really interesting choice. Speaking of the runtime, this thing moves at a juggernaut pace. I felt like this movie never stopped for a second to let you breathe. It is just shy of 2 hours. I think it's an hour and 55 minutes. I felt like it was an hour and a half. It was so quick. And there are a couple sequences in here where it feels like it might be too quick, but it's so efficient in the story that it's telling that it really didn't bother me all that much. Speaking of the story that they're telling, I guess we should get into the big threat in here, which is Galactus. And Galactus is a villain that in Marvel I've heard about for a very long time. He did appear in Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer in 2007. He appeared as a big cloud of smoke. Now, as a kid, I didn't know any better. I didn't know what Galactus was supposed to be. I just accepted it. As I got older and heard more about Galactus being this big, gigantic celestial being, I can see why people got upset back in 2007. Here, there's nothing to be upset about. Galactus is incredibly comic book accurate, and they made him fit perfectly into this movie. Not only does his design and a lot of his motivations work for both our characters and bringing the stakes to their world and also to their personal lives, but Galactus is presented here as a terrifying, larger-than-life villain that you truly do sit there and think to yourself, how on earth are the Fantastic Four going to stop this threat, this presence that is constantly lingering over the world, because Galactus is coming to the Fantastic Four's world to devour it. He is the planet eater. He's coming to eat the Fantastic Four's world. They've got to find a way to stop him. And that threat is constantly looming over every decision and everything that the Fantastic Four do throughout this entire movie. There's also a couple of personal stakes that are in the trailers, but I'll keep it spoiler free if you haven't been watching the trailers and all the promotional footage. There's been a lot of clips released online, and I don't remember if it was in a trailer or in the clips specifically, but the way that they tie Galactus' motivation to Sue Storm in particular and something that she's going through, it was really powerful and impactful. And it is a motivation that you can see why the Fantastic Four have to stop Galactus at all costs. Everything about it, you buy into it, you're on board, you're behind the Fantastic Four. Of course, you've got Galactus' henchwoman in this, Silver Surfer, played by Julia Gardner, and she's really good. I like what they did with the Silver Surfer. They give her a lot more to her character than I was expecting, and a lot more with Johnny and her character than I was expecting, where Johnny kind of has a subplot that involves the Silver Surfer and kind of figuring out what the Silver Surfer exactly is, which I thought was really interesting for the character of Johnny, because I feel like they gave Johnny Storm more intelligence and more to do in this Fantastic Four movie than we've ever seen Johnny Storm have in any of the other Fantastic Four movies, which I really like. The short stick here is definitely the thing. Ben Grimm doesn't get overly much to do. He just kind of is there to be the lovable guy who likes to cook and is just kind of the soft one almost in the group. But Ebon Bachrach is fantastic as the Thing, and there's definitely some sympathetic moments and sequences that you get with the Thing throughout the movie. A couple of them come in and go kind of quickly. I wish we got a little bit more. There's in particular a resident of the world, of the city that the Fantastic Four protect, that the Thing kind of gets close to throughout the movie, but they're barely in the film. I think they're in like maybe 3 scenes, and I can see what they were trying to do with the Thing in that regard. It just didn't really come across as powerful as it could. And yeah, for the most part, Fantastic Four, I think, was just a breath of fresh air for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I was very impressed with a lot of what they pulled off here. Let's talk a little bit about what didn't work about the Fantastic Four first steps. And there's very little in this section. I'm very happy to say I'm having a really good year with Marvel, because even something like Thunderbolts, when I did my what didn't work section in Thunderbolts, I didn't have that much to say. I just overall kind of really enjoyed the experience. And there was a lot of similar feelings for me with Fantastic Four in that sense, where this movie does move at a breakneck pace. It is so quick. And for that reason, some scenes with the Fantastic Four and some other characters, they don't always get the room that I feel like they deserve to have to breathe. And there's a couple sequences and scenes that just kind of go by really, really quickly, that I wish we could have gotten a little bit deeper, a little bit more intimate with the characters in those scenes, and just dove a little bit more into this world. That's another thing too, is they've designed and gotten this reality so detailed and so beautiful and gorgeous to look at and so interesting to explore, and we don't really get to explore it all that much. There's a couple shots where Thing is walking around the city in the beginning of the film, and we get to kind of see the beginning of the film. We get to see some of the world and some of the foes in the past the Fantastic Four have fought, but for the majority of this film, the Fantastic Four are either in the Baxter Building or in space, and we don't really get to explore this 60s retro futuristic world as much as I'd want to. And for that reason, there's a couple characters that pop up in here, such as Paul Walter Hauser is a character in here, and he has a very small role to play, but it's also a role that like is another interesting detail of this world that I would have liked to have seen more. Maybe we'll get to see more in the sequels. I'm certainly hoping so, but I wish that they could have given us just a little bit more of the world. On top of that, I do think that there are a couple of moments in this film where, because it's a different world, because it's a different world, because it's not our reality or even the reality of the proper MCU that we're used to, they can get away with fudging the science a little bit more, where they have explanations, they have jumps in logic and leaps in what you can do scientifically to solve problems that you just kind of buy into, because it's like, okay, well, I guess it works because this is their world. And it is a little bit of a crutch that they can use where, oh, this science, it just works because this is our world, not your world or the proper MCU. So you can just buy that in this world, scientifically, this is how the science and math would work. And, you know, it's fine. You think about it for a second and you kind of go, I don't know if that makes the most sense. There's a particular plan of teleportation used in this film that, when you think about it for a second, I don't know how well it would actually go. Like, spoiler free. I don't know how well that would actually work. But hey, Reed Richards is said to be the smartest man in this universe. This is a different universe, so we'll just say that plan could work. Also, as much as I think that this film is absolutely gorgeous to look at, and is the cinematography in this is fantastic. Whoever is the cinematographer on this movie, I hope he does, or they do more in the MCU going forward, because I think this is the kind of look and just beautiful scenery and color grading and all that kind of stuff that the MCU kind of needs moving forward. I don't really want the Fantastic Four to go to some of the muted colors we get in some of the MCU films, but we'll see what happens. In this film itself, it was great. But there are a couple CGI elements that weren't the most realistic. There's one character in particular, I guess it's in the trailers and stuff, so I'll talk about what's in the trailers. There is a baby in this. It's seen in all the promotional trailers and all that stuff. The Fantastic Four, they have a baby, and or two of the members of the team have a baby anyways, and they kind of opted to not have a real baby on set a lot of the times, it looks like, which I'm kind of all for that. If a baby against its will doesn't need to be on set, I would prefer a CGI baby, which is the route the Fantastic Four takes. There is definitely a lot of freaky looking CGI baby moments though in this film, and the CGI baby isn't always that convincing, and it is one element of the film that really pulled me out of the film, which is unfortunate because the baby is pretty pinnacle to the movie itself. Like, it's a very important element of the movie. And so when you're looking at this baby and it just, like, it doesn't look real, it looks kind of creepy, and you just don't always buy that it's being held by somebody. In fact, I found it funny because a lot of the times the CGI baby is being held by the Thing, so they got the CGI character holding the CGI character. Very few times does the CGI baby move to Pedro Pascal or Vanessa Kirby's arms. They definitely have a real baby when they're doing that. But yeah, the CGI baby, just a little bit strange. Other than that, though, yeah, I gotta say, Fantastic Four, as much as I wasn't super anticipating this movie, it was in my most anticipated movies of the year because it was Marvel and I wanted to see what they did with it. I mean, it was, for years we've been clamoring for Marvel to take back the Fantastic Four. They finally have the Fantastic Four, and I think they did a really, really good job with it. I don't know how everyone's going to respond to it because it's not like a typical MCU film. Not only is it an alternate reality, but like I said, not much action to it. It's very scientific and intellectual throughout the entire runtime. The humor in here, too, I found to be a little bit lacking. Like, I think there was a couple good jokes, but for the most part, it was pretty serious all the way through. But I still had, a really great time with it. And I think another thing about it too that I just had such a great time with it is it was yet another Marvel Cinematic Universe film that harkened back to how I felt watching Marvel back in phase 2 and phase 3. I got that with Thunderbolts, where Thunderbolts felt like a movie that was plucked out of phase 2 and put in phase 5 or whatever it was. Fantastic Four feels like Marvel when they were at their peak in phase 3. and it gives me a lot of hope moving forward, going into Spider-Man Brand New Day, going into Avengers Doomsday, that Marvel may have just corrected the ship at the right time. It's got me really excited to see the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe more than I've had in quite some time. And it's by far the best Fantastic Four movie that they've ever put out. Any studio has ever put out. And for that reason, I'm going to give Fantastic Four a very solid recommend. I think that if you're a Marvel fanboy like myself in general, you should definitely go check it out. Even casuals should go definitely check this out. I had a really I'm going to say it, I had a fantastic time with it. If you like content like this, check out some more Marvel content right up there. You can also check out the most recently uploaded video right over there. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. What did you think of Fantastic Four? Let me know down below. Don't just watch movies, talk movies, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.